If you're a nurse practitioner and you crash on the couch after work, fully dressed, wondering how can you feel this tired and yet still be expected to give your all tomorrow, then this video is for you. Healthcare administrators aren't burning you out on purpose, but there is a crucial truth they are not telling nurse practitioners. And healthcare administrators, they won't say this out loud, but once you understand it, you'll never practice the same way again. And honestly, they probably hate that I'm spilling the beans. Hi, for those of you who are new here, my name is Nicole. I am a rheumatology nurse practitioner, and I help other nurse practitioners find happiness in healthcare and meaningfully connect with their patients in 60 seconds or less. I have had so many nurse practitioners tell me that after their shift, they just crash on the couch, fully dressed, because when they stop moving, that's when the exhaustion finally catches up and it hits them. In fact, a daily thought in their mind is something's got to change, but they have no idea where to start. And just having that thought, that one thought, feels like more of a burden on their shoulders. In fact, they can't stop working either. Healthcare administrators are measuring our quality metrics, right? We have to see a certain number of patients a day. We have to code correctly. We have to complete and close our notes in a certain amount of days. Uh, you know, so the organization can bill the patient's insurance and receive compensation. Like everything is so measured, everything feels so transactional. And maybe deep down inside of you, you're thinking you made a huge mistake in your career, in your life, and it's too late now to change it. You can't go back in time. You're trapped in this life of never ending exhaustion. And it's really, maybe you think it's really the healthcare administrators who are the enemy due to the administrative burden they put on us. I mean, we just came into this career to help people. That's what we came into it. That's what we want to do. But we have to deal with patient frustrations with high costs, confusing billing, prior authorizations. I mean, just this month for me personally, my leadership, my own medical group gave us providers, my department, another quality metric we have to measure. So when every time we see a patient, there's more clicks of a button, more clicks on the chart. And it's like, this is not why I went into my career. I want to help people. I don't want to have to deal with this, all this cognitive overwhelm. And maybe you're feeling this lack of trust with the healthcare administrators that they only care about profits over patient care. And maybe you feel disconnected, you feel distrustful, you feel disrespected, and maybe just plain drained, as a matter of fact. And the only joy in your life is when your day off, when you get off work, your weekends, your countdown to vacation, or even your retirement. And I totally get it. Completely get it because that was me. That was 100% me. I was right there at the start of my nurse practitioner career journey. At the beginning of my journey, I cried every night writing my notes and prepping my chart notes for my next day's patients. I hated spending the majority of my hours, majority of my life in the EHR, triaging patient messages, all this administrative work and burden. I mean, I spent months questioning my career decision. I'm supposed to help people. I'm supposed to be a healer, a caregiver. Why am I always on the computer and clicking buttons? How is this provider level work? And so I understand the pain that you're feeling. But here's the truth. You cannot expect to live like 99% of the population when you are the 1%. I'm going to say that again. You cannot expect to live like 99% of the population when you are part of the 1%. Did you know that nurse practitioners represent less than 1% of the US population? Let's break it down. Let's do the math because I really want to drive this home. So, all right. So, according to the US Census Bureau, as of the publishing of this video today, there are about 343 million people in the US. So there's 343 million people in the US approximately. per the American Association of Nurse Practitioners, there are 461,000 nurse practitioners practicing in the country. So if we do the math, if we divide how many nurse practitioners they are over the number of people in the US population, do you know what number we get? We get 0.1%. 0.1%. Nurse practitioners represent 0.1% of the US population, not even 1%. We're a fraction of a percentage. Now, if you're a physician associate or physician assistant or a PA and you're watching this video and you want to know your numbers, there are approximately 190,000 licensed PAs right now. So 190,000, do you know what the math is? I'm sorry. Sorry, that's an error. 0.05%. Half the number of nurse practitioners. You're not even a tenth of a percent. Now, if you're watching this and you're a physician, if you're an MD, a DO, there are just over 1 million doctors in the US. So just over 1 million doctors in the US, you represent 1% of the US population. 1%. I'm sorry. No. I'm sorry. I'm reading the wrong line. So for physicians, you represent 0.2% of the country. So physicians represent 0.2% of the US, double of nurse practitioners, which is 0.1% of the US. So when you are the 1% of the population, you cannot expect to live like 99% of the rest of the population. Nurse practitioners, PAs, and physicians together represent less than 1% of the US population. All right, I'm going to give you an example to really drive this home. So professional athletes. Professional athletes are taught to exercise, work out, train really hard, but they also have their rest and recover days. Their body, of professional athletes, their body is their livelihood. It is their livelihood, their career, everything depends on them keeping their body as number one priority. And so rest days, recovery days are imperative for a professional athlete. It allows their muscles to repair, rebuild, and strengthen from all of the tiny microscopic injuries and damage they get from training and exercising and playing their sport, which allows them to ultimately improve their performance and prevent burnout. And also rest and recovery, it helps them, restore their energy, balance their hormones and cortisol levels. So if you think about it, if you work out every day, continuous, high intensity training without any recovery days, that's going to lead to chronic pain, to overuse of your joints, and eventually injury, right? But athletes, they don't rest by just sitting on the couch, eating potato chips and Cheetos and, watching a movie and scrolling TikTok. No, they're strategic. They get 7 to 10 hours of sleep a day. They incorporate light recovery activities, so like light activities like walking, swimming, yoga, to promote that blood flow, to reduce stiffness without straining their muscles too much. Maybe they use foam rollers or massage to reduce muscle tightness. They maintain proper nutrition, adequate amounts of protein, carbohydrates, fats, and they stay hydrated to avoid muscle cramps. They also engage in non-strenuous activities like reading, meditating to reduce mental fatigue. And so while athletes do rest, they are resting strategically. A rest day is for recovery to be stronger. It's not a cheat day. Those cheat days will put them behind. They don't want to get behind. They want the recovery to help them continue to build that momentum. And so as nurse practitioners, we're not professional athletes in the NBA, the NFL, obviously, but we are cognitive high performers. We are cognitive high performers. We make thousands of medical decisions every day. I mean, just today, this morning, I was triaging my patient messages in my in basket. And I went through a dozen patient charts. I decided if a patient needs to change a medication. Oh, they have kidney disease. They can't do these medications. Do they have a history of a blood clot? Oh, they had a PE last year. I can't, they're on a blood thinner, Eliquis. I can't put them on this medication. And so, as cognitive high performers in our roles, we're not taught to take rest days. No one taught us this in school, in NP school, in training. Our work is not as visual as professional athletes. With athletes, you see them running, you see them grab the ball, kick the ball, charge the other players. Like, it's very visual, it's very physical. High cognitive performers, our work is not very visual. No one sees all the work that goes on in our brains. It's the invisible work, right? And society has built this stereotype that if you're a high cognitive performer, if you take a day off, you're lazy. You're considered lazy. But the same principle applies for professional athletes as to us high cognitive performers. We need rest days too. Our brain is not designed for constant output, for nonstop output. Our brains don't just get tired, they start to change in how they function. So, for example, without deep rest and recovery, the metabolic waste accumulates in our brain's glymphatic system, which leads to slower thinking, brain fog, and even poor recall. Chronic overwork shifts control from the prefrontal cortex, which is the frontal area of your frontal lobe, and prefrontal cortex in charge of executive function, decision making, regulating our emotions, and all of that chronic overwork shifts the control from the prefrontal cortex to the amygdala. The amygdala is that part of our brain that processes feelings such as fear, anxiety, even aggression, because our brain feels like it's constantly under threat from all the chronic overwork. Cortisol levels stay elevated, which means neurons are becoming less sensitive to feedback and impairs our learning. Dopamine systems burn out. Dopamine is that neurotransmitter that helps drive motivation, focus, reward. We get a dopamine hit when we, hug our spouse, or a cute 5-year-old patient with a toothy grin high fives us and, makes our day. But, without rest, dopamine receptors downregulate. And now what once felt meaningful now feels heavy and pointless and purposeless. Neuroplasticity decreases if we don't have rest and recovery. Neuroplasticity refers to our brain's ability to create synaptic connections in our neurons. And so no rest or recovery leads to reduced synaptic plasticity, which means less adaptability, more rigid thinking, and difficulty integrating new information that we absorb. There is so much more. I mean, these are just light bullet points, but it's really a paradox. The higher the cognitive load, the more rest, the greater the recovery requirement is needed. The higher cognitive load, the more recovery requirement. So rest is required, but it's not just any rest, it's strategic rest, because our brains are our livelihood. As nurse practitioners, our brains is literally our livelihood. We cannot function and focus and be nurse practitioners without our brain being our asset to help us. And so strategic rest is required. That might mean going after a long day at work, instead of choosing to collapse on the couch and eat Cheetos and watch a movie and just kind of crash, we go for a walk, because walking does the heavy lifting for our brain. Walking promotes and increases blood flow, oxygen to the brain, which can promote better mental clarity, reaction time, and working memory. It might mean reading a few pages of a novel or a nonfiction book after a 12-hour shift, because reading stimulates new neural connections at a pace that the brain can metabolize. And, it provides this very slow and steady dopamine release and reduces cognitive overload, unlike the spikes and the crashes of dopamine that comes from scrolling on a social media. It might mean writing in your journal after a day of nonstop patient care, because writing removes stress and emotion from the amygdala and reduces the brain's need to stay on this high threat alert and allows the brain to empty its emotional inbox and restores regulation and returns to a state of clarity. How we rest matters. I was speaking to a director of my health organization recently. She's really high upper level management leadership. And she said to me, "Why aren't providers taking care of themselves?" And it was such an interesting question she asked me. And this was at a meeting. It was in the afternoon. And she said after this meeting, she's going to go to the gym and work out because she knows how important it is to take care of her body and her brain. My health organization's own CEO, he takes videos of himself running in the morning in the cold fog this winter or swimming in the freezing ocean in the middle of December or January. And he takes these videos and he shares empowering words, trying to inspire, inject motivation, inspiration in all of us in the company. But he's really showing how he rests and recovers. And when he has to make countless high cognitive decisions all day. And so our healthcare administrators, they actually want us to succeed. They want us to succeed. They're not necessarily the enemy that we all thought they were. They're trying to keep us in business and keep the lights on. Because if we're not in the green, if we're not in the black, if we are losing money, we're going to go out of business. And then patients can't get care, period. Meanwhile, studies demonstrate that over 70% of Americans, after a long day at work, they go home to release stress, they multitask by watching TV and scrolling on their phone and doom scrolling on social media. But we cannot expect to be able to live like 70% of the world when we represent less than 1%. We are less than 1%. We cannot follow their blueprint. It does not work like that. The director I spoke with, my company's CEO, they know they cannot live like the other 99%. That is the secret that healthcare administrators don't tell us. During the day, they measure what they can measure: quality metrics, how many patients we see, how quickly we close our notes, all the things that are measurable. But they neglect to tell us how high cognitive performers should rest and recover strategically, what we should do on our time off, so that we can sustain and thrive as that 1%. Now, if I haven't convinced you yet, then give me a couple more minutes and listen to this. Giraffes eat at their level of vision. I'm going to say that again. Giraffes eat at their level of vision. What the heck does that mean, Nicole? So giraffes are the tallest animals in the world. They really are. They can stand as tall as 20 feet high, especially the male giraffes. So 20 feet, we're talking about a giraffe can be like as tall as a basketball hoop, probably a couple feet extra above that. A giraffe can be as tall as 3 or 4 adults standing on each other's shoulders. A giraffe can be so tall that they can peek into your second story window and say, "Hello, how is it going?" And because giraffes are so tall, they can eat leaves from tall trees at their eye level. Their field of vision determines their feeding range, and that's where they get their nourishment. And giraffes don't graze low to the ground like the other animals because their anatomy and their perspectives are built for something higher. Now this is what it means for you. Your perspective shapes your reality and your opportunities. Growth is only limited or expanded by your vision. If your vision is low, your intake stays low. If your vision is high, your nourishment changes. So stay nourished mentally, emotionally, physically at the level of your perspective. And if you want to be that giraffe, stay nourished at that 1% perspective and level, then I invite you to join my free email newsletter for nurse practitioners. Every week, I email you free private reflections, real-time insight, and actual clear tactical strategies and ways you can make your way of practice better. This week's email, we're talking about hopelessness. because it is human to feel hopeless and what to do when you feel that way and how to be that 1% that can move forward despite feeling that hopelessness. We all knew that working as a nurse practitioner would be difficult. It would be hard. But at the end of the day, we just want to feel like it matters. So click on the link below in the description box, and I highly invite you to join our weekly email newsletter family. And who knows, you might get a free gift with your first email from me. Your brain believes the story you tell it and you repeat to yourself. So make it a good one, make it a powerful one. Raise your vision, and what you consume, your ideas, your habits, your opportunities will rise with it. Something truly amazing happens when you lock in and you do ordinary things at extraordinary levels. I hope this episode was helpful. If it was, then you should definitely watch my last episode. Are soft skills more powerful than clinical skills? Otherwise, I will see you all in the next episode. And remember, I am always rooting for you.